Hello and welcome back to Hindsight is 50/50. I'm the host J-Rod with my co-host the ORG old retired guy. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. Doing really good, buddy. You know, it's colder today, but everything's green. I look forward to that. I look forward to spring. There's, certainly some messy times during the spring, and we actually had snow this morning. Our deck was snow covered.
We didn't have that, but so we've had 80s, almost 90, and then today we had that grapple that it's like a perfect circle and it's soft hail, so it melts after it hits. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's what we've had on and off all day today.
But yeah, we had, high 70s. And like you said, I think the highest we had last week was 83. We had 3 days where it was right around that temperature. And I mean, it's like in the spring, you have fresh batteries. So I'm anxious to get out and do things. And I always have to trim those. We've got a bunch of those wild cherry trees and they just grow all over the place. And so I always have to trim those limbs out because if I don't, they hang down and hit me in the face when I'm mowing the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want
That's
that.
fun.
So I give those all a haircut. But yeah, I mean, I actually worked pretty hard outdoors. But
how'd you lose your eye riding the lawn riding the lawnmower?
Yeah.
Cherry tree.
I almost always have safety glasses on. Sunglasses with safety glasses.
See that scar? Bit by a squirrel. Yeah.
But yeah, I just, you get kind of, or I do anyway, because of the winter. And even though this year by Michigan standards was a mild one, I mean, I'm anxious to get out and get going when the weather gets good. So I got a lot done. There's a few things that are, we'll see. They sound like they're falling into place. So, for the tractor's not here yet, but it's supposed to be soon. So that's one of the big linchpins of, everything that I'm excited about. But I ordered an attachment for the back and that's coming in. And, my landscape stone that they gave to me has been up at the quarry up by Saginaw since I retired. And I didn't really have it a ride. Well, one of my old friends who owns a contracting business, he had one of his foremen call me yesterday, and they're going to pick that up this week. So I'll have as soon as that tractor gets here, I'll have another project for that tractor. It's just an address stone, it's a big piece of limestone that's like,
you put it on the corner right where you put your trash bin.
Yes, in that general vicinity, and put our house number on it. It's just kind of a cool thing. Plus,
it'll be a hell of a lot easier for delivery drivers too.
Yes, and I have the rock garden where all of the places that I worked, I have rocks from every one of those in that rock garden, but I didn't have anything from that quarry, and so this is the rock from that quarry for whatever sentimental purpose that has. But I always kind of wanted one of those. And so, and then I've, got a buddy who's going to deliver me some stone so I can put some bedding stone in for that. And yeah, so, I mean, I'm kind of, if we don't get any more hail, I'm going to have to mow lawn this week for sure, but I see the temperature, the forecast is down in the 40s, up in the 50s, down in the 40s and I think there's even a day in there in the 70s in the next 10 days. So it's a typical Michigan spring, but something to be excited about for me. I like being outdoors, I like doing things outdoors. We had a list of show topics, and this one isn't on there, and it's just a quick story. I don't know if did Melissa tell you about the text I sent her this morning?
No.
Tell you anything? Well, I got a text from her. Now I didn't get it till like she must have worked last night, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't see it until I woke up, but the text I received it. My phone received it at 4:35 a.m. So I figured she was working, and it was this TikTok thing, and the guy is like he's singing a song and he's dancing around in the house, and he's got on
Yes, I know what
like
you're talking
cargo
about. She
pants
showed
and
me the TikTok.
yeah, and he walks outside while he's still singing and rips off his cargo pants like stripper pants, and jumps on the zero turn and just going away. And because I think she knows that's how I
Yeah,
get.
like there's like a caption or something like "Dads when spring hits" or something like
Yes.
that, and he's
Yes.
just in a chipper mood, and he's got those snap-on pants that you wear for like basketball, and
Yes.
he walks outside and just rips them off and puts on his headphones and gets on his zero turn
Yep.
lawnmower, and he's just spinning around in a circle,
It's
smiling.
great. That is fantastic me time, buddy. I've
It's
enjoyed that for years, and I still do. And when that tractor comes in, your mom said to me the other day, she said, "I'm never gonna see you in my." And it's like, well, when the weather's
I
nice.
mean, you're getting up there. You're running out of room for collector's toys now. You're getting up there in your number of toys. You got yourself a fairly new chainsaw. You've
Yeah,
got a nice riding mower. You've
yeah,
got a four-wheeler, a mule, which is a UTV for anyone who doesn't know, with a cab on it.
yeah.
Um, you have
Motorcycle.
you've got two motorcycles right now,
Yeah,
and you've got your tractor on the way, as well as little trailers to pull behind it and all kinds of things. Plus, you got your pickup truck.
yeah. I've turned into Larry the Cable Guy uh, in my retirement. One of my neighbors, the neighbors are as anxious for me about as I am about the tractor. I mean, I get texts from neighbors all the time. Like, when are you
I'm
is the
sure they
tractor
want to
in?
come see it too.
Oh
Like if you
yeah.
guys
Oh
are
yeah.
all
I told them
tractor guys.
we're going on a neighborhood tour as soon as I can figure out how to navigate that thing. But yeah, one of the guys, the new neighbors, that I told you, are such nice people. He said, "Any news on the tractor?" And I said, maybe Monday, but I'm supposed to hear Monday, which I'm actually supposed to hear today, if it'll be here this week. And so I text him that, and he sends me back this text of a giant tractor with that's just like flames are coming out of the wheels. And he says, it says, "My vision of your tractor." It's like, no, no.
Some
But
of those tractors are insane, though. I mean, when I worked on a farm baling hay, and I know they get way more expensive, but the tractor that I was hooking up to the wagons and the trailers was $180,000 tractor,
oh, I'm
and
sure.
the cab was more spacious than any cab I've been in out of a single seat machine, and underneath the seat was a built-in refrigerator. And they had TV and satellite and everything was on it. It was loaded.
Well, I mean, obviously, what I'm getting doesn't have a cab. It's nothing like that, but it will be a fun toy.
It looks like it's going to be a modern red version of Grandpa's old blue tractor, and I like that style.
Well, it's got a front bucket, and that's a huge difference, which Grandpa's didn't. And it's going to
But
have
again, that's an attachment. I mean, you can take those arms off,
oh yeah,
hydraulic
yeah,
arms. So,
and the
but
bucket
I
is
just
quick
meant like the
release.
style. It's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah,
like
it's that size.
not that it's not a work tractor, but it looks more like a garden tractor, if that makes sense.
Well, the neighbor's got the Ford tractor, and I want to say that is like Greg Bondi's. His is like, I don't know, 30 years old maybe, because tractors last forever, especially if they're diesel.
Well, yeah, exactly.
But he, I was over there talking to him the other day because he asked me to, and I was talking to him, and that tractor that I'm getting is, I would bet that if you put the wheelbase dimensions and everything, it's very close to what he has, which I can see all the work he does with his, and that's fine. That's plenty enough for me. That,
Oh,
this
yours
will do
sits as
everything I
high
need.
as Greg's does?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh, see, I didn't think his was much longer. I just thought it was taller. But
and it's
I
got
I
it.
feel like that's why everyone's gonna want to look at the tractor though, is it's they're gonna be able not only to see you use it, but like they'll get to take a look at it, and when they all are ready for a new tractor, they're gonna have an idea of more of the technology that they do or don't want.
Well, yeah, and I mean this one's got the air cushion seat and all that stuff, which Greg's is older and it doesn't have that. But anyway, that text that Melissa sent me, it made me think about something that happened when we had the Easter egg hunt. Okay. And it's a real quick story, but I shared this with her. When you guys got here, as when everybody did, I always just kind of walk outside and is there anything I can help carry in and all that, So when you guys got here, you happened to be the last ones to arrive at Easter, which was, doesn't matter.
Normal.
No, but well, you get the farthest to go. But anyway, I step outside, and as soon as JJ got out of that car, your oldest boy, he was running to me, and his face was lit right up, and he yelled, "Grandpa!" And I mean, he came up and he ran and jumped, and I picked him up, and I told Melissa, I said, there are moments in your lifetime that are you never forget. I'll never forget that. That was I he was as excited to see me as I was to see him. And that was a pretty cool thing. Cuz I mean, I love all the grandkids and I get along with all of them. I do. But he and I, we do lots of stuff together. You know, he likes to be outside. He likes to help me. And that just,
Well, I read something a post the other day, and it was actually about dogs, but I think it's relatable to kids. And someone was putting their dog down, and they said it's a shame they don't last as long as we do. And this little kid said he knew why, and so they asked him why. And the little kid said, because they've already figured out how to be happy and love someone and only just love them. Like when you get home, your dog is always happy. He's always
right,
wagging their tail, right? So it's
right.
unconditional love without any strings attached. And it's like that to me, whether it's a true story made up, I don't care. But that expression to me is exactly like little kids. It's like they almost have it all figured out on that level, and I think that's why we're not kids for very long.
Well,
It's
it's a
like it
lot of
has to
truth to
go
that.
away for us to
There's
appreciate it.
there's a lot of truth to that. Now, I sent you guys a text the other day that was, I never got a response back from you. And
You
that's okay.
Well, if it's in a group text, I'm really bad. I don't.
Well, that's okay. But anyway, you'll find this funny. Okay, so I have to take, well, I just started taking it again, this medicine for my feet. Well,
Okay.
one of the side effects and one of the reasons I quit taking it is because, man, I have weird dreams when I take that stuff. It's called gabapentin. And I
Yeah,
have
I
and I
take or I used to. It's for nerve pain.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
and I take about the smallest dose you can take. I mean, you can take up to 1,800 milligrams a day or something, and I take like 300. Well, I had quit taking it for a long time because I didn't like it. Well, then when I started working outdoors last week, it's like I go, man, I'm gonna have to start taking that again because my feet were really bugging me. One of the nights, and this is what I text you boys about, all three of you boys. I had this dream and I remember it very vividly. Your mom, who this June will be 40 years, she was leaving me. When the tractor came, your mom said she was leaving me. And she said she was leaving me for another man. And I said, well, you know, I hope you're happy. I wish you wouldn't go, but I will tell you this. I have that tractor now, and if I ever see that guy, you'll never find the body. No, that was my dream.
I
And
mean, that is bizarre.
I isn't it? Isn't it?
That's
And
yeah, I don't.
again, that's why I don't one of the reasons I don't like taking anything, but I mean I have to take certain things, but yeah, that stuff and I really do have weird dreams. And I don't much care for that. But at night, each night, I have I put on the list comedians. I have you ever listened to Mitch Fattel or
I'm sure I
Fatel?
have, but the name doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, I think I was researching him, and he started out with he was like one of Howard Stern's producers, I think, for Howard Stern show. And this was years ago, and Mitch Fatel is much he's got to be in his 40s or 50s now. But his whole shtick is all about, I mean, it's almost always about sex. And he interacts with people in the audience, mostly women. He'll pick out a woman. And then he may interact with her boyfriend too to kind of ease any tension that he's creating. But, each night, when I was a little kid, I used to go to bed listening to Tiger Baseball. And I could even listen to St. Louis Cardinals games. Now, this was, 60 years ago. So you had an AM radio. And I mean, at that time, transistors were kind of just getting popular, little transistor radios. Well, even though we had a bedtime, I could hide one of those radios in my pillowcase. And I'd listen to Tigers games, and sometimes I'd listen to St. Louis Cardinals game. Years and years ago, Harry Carey, who did the Cubs games for years, did St. Louis Cardinals games. So I'd listen to those. Well, now I've gotten the habit of listening to comedians on, Pandora on my phone. And it's, right next to my head and the volume's really low. And I for some reason I like going to sleep to someone talking. And I don't necessarily like the brightness of the TV, but so I listen to this Mitch Fatel a lot, and I think he's really good. There's a lot of guys that I think are really good. Anthony Jeselnik, he is just rude and bold, and he makes
I mean, I
bad
think he's
jokes.
hilarious.
I think he's funnier than hell.
I mean,
I
it's
do.
certainly very dark humor, but
It's
it's
edgy.
thoughts that
Yeah.
everybody can have.
Oh yeah. And John Caparulo is one of my favorites. But in this rotation on Pandora, excuse me, I find myself listening to people that just because of that rotation that Pandora puts you in, if you like this guy, you should like this guy.
Right.
I'm able to listen to a lot of guys that I would have otherwise never heard of. Like there's a guy, I think his name is Noah Garden Schwartz. I think he's really funny. And he's Jewish and he makes fun of himself being Jewish. Um, and another guy is Nate Bargatze.
That dude is incredible.
I love that guy.
His country, like the little like twang in his voice that
Oh
makes him
yeah.
sound country, but also the blatant honesty when it comes to stupidity that just cracks me up because he'll sit there and he'll go, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I'm pretty dumb, and they'll go, oh, you're not that dumb, and he goes, well, we're about to have a conversation, I'm just letting you know.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just honest. It's
No.
like that shit is so good.
He
There's
said
another guy like Nick Thune. Nick
I
Thune
like him
has
too.
some good stuff.
Yep. Yep. I like him too. Um Bargatze was, and obviously they all have a ton of routines that are very good. And Caparulo is one of my favorites. I think Caparulo's voice is funny. Just his voice.
Yeah.
That itself is funny, but Bargatze was talking about again, he was talking about his lack of intelligence. And he's from Tennessee, and he said Well, and then I think he either is now, I think he now lives in New York. But he said, I didn't even know how to get to New York. I didn't even know where New York was. He said, I knew where Kentucky was and Virginia was. And he goes, all the places that might invade us, which I think is just
No, it's
hilarious.
good.
But yeah, he's real, he is.
I mean,
And
he
he,
has a Starbucks bit that I would encourage anyone to go out and listen to because when he hands over money and then they start asking him questions, he expects it to like be the end of the transaction. And the back and forth between him and the barista is some of the funniest shit I've ever heard in my life.
and he is. You're right. His persona, and when you see him, it's even funnier. Like
And he
he did it.
used to be like pretty chubby. Now he's
Oh,
like a silver fox. He since he's
yeah.
got money, he's in good shape, he's well taken care of. But when he first became popular, he was just like a chubby country bumpkin.
Well,
Like
yeah, and he makes fun of that too, and about fighting. It's like who I'm not gonna fight anybody.
yeah.
He said
He's
he
like, I
went to
mean,
the
you'll kick my ass.
he goes to this self defense class, and it's just him and two older 70-year-old ladies are the only ones there, and
Yeah.
the instructor doesn't even show up. So he said we kicked for like 2 minutes. We practiced kicks. And then we just sat down and talked for an hour and a half. But he did a Netflix thing that was, I'm sure he has more than one, but I watched one of his Netflix specials and it was really,
We had
really
one that
good.
came out this year. I don't know if that's the one you
Yeah.
watched, but it was pretty
Yeah.
good.
And he talks about it just his life. And like you said, his persona. And when I first heard him, the first skit I ever heard, and you know how his dry delivery is. He said, my dad was a clown. And he goes, no, my dad was a clown with the big nose and the big feet and the makeup. He says, the whole time I was, through grade school, my dad made his living by being a clown. And just his delivery makes it even more
He's
funny.
like, it's cool until you're about 5 and kids start to
Yes.
figure out that your dad's a clown.
Yes. And then by the time he's in junior high, all his friends are saying, so is your dad still doing the clown thing? And he said, and then his dad converted to being a magician.
Yes.
And and he says, no, he's pretty much full-time magic now. And anyway, there's just so many guys that, and that's one of my things that I like listening to someone talk.
When they
And
have a special charisma about them though.
yeah, that's
Like with
true.
him it is that country accent, but it's the combination. So you've got the good old boy with like a belly laugh. That's kind of the personality you're getting in the beginning from him.
Yep.
But then when it gets to the storytelling, what what I think he does exceptionally well is all of those everyday encounters where you have like an awkward moment or something weird happens and you might be in the shower later thinking about like, boy, I should have done that different, or you get in the car and you're like, that was fucking odd. His comedy is that conversation you have in your head. Like that his comedy is explaining the awkward moment of what he's thinking, and I love that.
Well, I listened to one, and I'm sure it's older. Most everything on Pandora is, as far as the comedians acts, and many times there'll be something that they reference, and that it's a 10-year-old skit or something. That's all I'm saying. But Caparulo was talking about him and his wife, and their daughter being out in Vegas, and they were walking on the strip at night. And Caparulo, and he makes fun of that part. He's short, he's pudgy, and he's self-deprecating in that regard. But they see this guy and there's like panhandlers and there's people dressed as Mickey Mouse trying to get, $10 for a picture and all that stuff. But they see this guy who's his penis is sticking out. Well, Caparulo looks at it, and because you can't help, it's right in front of you, and it's like he's just like walking, and he's got his little girl, his 2-year-old, and he grabs his wife by the hand, and he just keeps walking. Well, then they got in an argument after they walked away, and Caparulo said, that was fake. He just had that pinned to his pants or whatever. It wasn't really the guy's penis. And his wife says, "Well, I can't believe you let that go." He goes, "So you want me to get in a fight with a guy with his penis?"
Yeah. This sounds like a lose-lose.
Yeah. But
Oh
no,
god.
these guys, all these guys now are just,
One of
the,
the better storytellers that we didn't mention, at least in my opinion, and he's just got something, is Ron White.
oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
his
Ron White's
stories are
great.
just phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah. And he's got the Texas twang. And, when he performs live, he's always smoking a cigar and drinking Johnny Walker. Or
Well,
that's
he's
what he,
sober now. Yeah.
what, I didn't know that. I didn't even know if he was drinking iced tea in a Johnny Walker bottle.
He
But,
used to be hammered before he'd go on stage. And part of him losing weight and not being so red faced, he actually about it, but a lot of celebrities that are trying to kick a bad habit or, develop a new path for life, whatever you want to call it, they do those like ayahuasca journeys.
mm,
And so they pay to go to a retreat where you're in a safe place with people who know how to manage you if you freak out, or if you're comfortable, they know how to make you even more comfortable. And they're just there for your privacy and protection. And they will administer the right. So, like, you get like a small dose of something before the ayahuasca, and then they will give you a little bit of ayahuasca later in the evening. And then I think it's something like at like midnight or around there, they give you another one. And it's a hallucinogenic drug, and apparently people go on these spiritual journeys. I don't know how much of it's true or not, but I do know that there's a ton of people who swear by it, and it's like they kick all these habits, and he doesn't drink anymore at all.
well,
And
my
that's what
old
he did.
boss, and I don't know that he described a week-long thing that he and his wife both went on, and it was years ago. And he didn't describe any hallucinogenic drugs, so it may not be the same thing, but I know it was a week-long process. He hasn't had a drink of alcohol since, you know. And so obviously and I know there's many things that work for many people,
Right.
but that that kind of thing worked for him.
But they I think there's something there. I mean, whether it's like DMT in your brain or whatever it is, but I do think there's something there that plays with your psyche a little bit, because I've even heard stories of people that struggle with like tobacco, and they
Oh yeah.
do shrooms, and they trip about all the tobacco that they've chewed in their life, or smoked, or whatever the case is, and then they don't do it ever again. So I think there's something. It might not be what the plant or herb necessarily provides, but I think there's something that maybe it allows you to relax, so part of your brain unlocks, so you can kind of solve
Right.
a deeper problem, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, and it seems like it works for people. Now, as you're my mom's still around. My dad's been gone for be 9 years this year, in
Crazy.
July. But my mom's still around. She still has the same place where I grew up out in the country. My brother stays with her. And she's 86 and she's still plugging along. I mean, she cooks some again. She's, gets around a little bit. And those are all good things. But with uh, your mom's parents, they're 92 and 90. And they, we just, I think it's just was 2 weeks, or anyway, it's right around 2 weeks. We moved them into an assisted living facility. And really nice place. I mean, really good, like, it seems like it's good care. They have their own apartment, you know. They get them out, 3 times a day to go to meals. They have activities there. Your grandma's played bingo. I know your grandpa, I think they both went to a Bible study. They have musicians come in and different guys to play music and different things. But, that's one of those things where you're very fortunate if you can afford to do that because it's not cheap. And they're very fortunate that they're able to afford that. But
Well, they were fortunate also because I mean they had in-home care, which was
24/7 care
probably
for
probably
years.
twice as expensive as going to a nice facility. They were going to run out of money eventually doing that. You have trouble with keeping help around and agency versus non-agency, and the pay rates are different, and it gets pretty astronomical. But they not only that, they have probably more of a life in this facility because they're able to participate with people their age as well as activities that people their age can do. But even on top of all of that, the biggest issue with them ever going into a facility was that they were at two different levels of care.
Right.
And you guys were able to find one where now they can still live together so you're not splitting them up.
Right.
So it's like, I mean,
Yep.
this thing seems like a win across the board.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a small apartment, but it's plenty enough room.
But they sit in a
Uh,
chair all day. It doesn't need to be very big.
and they sleep in a chair. They sleep in their chairs at night. So the bedroom, which was next to the bathroom, your mom and her sister Jan actually switched the bedroom now as their living room because it's bigger than what the living room was, and it has a bigger window. Like they have a foyer, they can go outdoors. There's just it's proven to be um a really nice thing. It's taken a
A
lot of
major
the
blessing.
yes, it's taken a lot of the management of all that you mentioned, the help, etc.
Well, yeah,
off
I
your
mean,
mom
that's not
off your
even
mom's plate.
including the stress on you guys and everybody who's got to figure it out. That's just
Right.
the financial and aspects for grandma and grandpa. But I mean, for mom and all that, it was, you know, for lack of a better description, she never really got to retire because she just switched from her day job to taking care of them and managing the people who take care of them.
It's you can already see a difference. I mean, she doesn't have to worry about is so and so not going to make it for second shift, and then
And
you
I
got
think
no backup and all that
I think
stuff.
things
So,
like that, like with her stress level and anxiety level, as well as what that's going to do to you, because no one likes to see their partner miserable.
right.
Um, Not just that, but also grandma and grandpa being in a place where there's more activities to keep their brain
Yeah.
motivated.
Yeah.
I think in both aspects, like on both sides of it, it added time, whether that's years or month, I don't know, but it added time to everybody's lifespan. Because it's like, if you're stressed because mom's stressed, that's not healthy for your long term health. If mom's constantly stressed because her parents are, unfortunately at a point in their
Right.
life where they're a burden, that's not good for her health. But now they're in a place where they're not a burden for you guys and they're going to be more active. It's like, it just, honestly, it seems like a great thing across the board.
Well, and when you face that decision, if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford it, when you face that decision, it's tough on everybody. It's you know, because everybody wants to stay at home, but there comes a point in time where it's just no longer practical, you know.
Well,
And
it's just like the driving thing. When people start losing their
right,
independence,
it
it's always
sucks.
going to be a struggle because you're essentially reverting back into a child. And it's
Yep,
like, okay, I can't drive. Someone wipes my butt, someone cooks my
yep,
meals, and now you're going to take my home.
yeah,
So I get the stubborn aspect, but I do think it's a part of life, and I think there comes to a point where if it's something that's doable that's not just going to break you. I think eventually most, if not all, old people settle into the idea of it, because in the beginning, it might be like, I raised you, I took care of you. So if you got to take care of me a little bit, so be it. But then after they realize how much work it is because you're grown adults, and there's more care even than there is with the kid, because you can't let your grandparents or your parents go outside and play. Like
Right.
there's that 24/7 care you're talking about. I do think that there's a settling of that frustration or stubbornness to where they go, okay, this is what's best for everyone.
Well, your grandpa, he was adamant about always wanting to stay at home, and I knew, I felt that would your grandma Scully would do, like, whatever he would do, she would do willingly. Okay, as long as she was with him, it was fine.
Yeah.
And but I dreaded the meeting. I did. I dreaded the meeting. And when everybody had made the decision to do this, and it's, clearly the right thing to do. I mean, you can't, there's no rational argument against doing what had to be done here, going to an assisted living facility. But I dreaded that meeting, and there was no pushback at all. None. And he got it. He heard it. And your mom wanted me to be at the meeting. And the first thing I said to him was, I'm not your blood, but I feel like I am. You know, I he's done a lot of good things to me, and for me, and we've had a really good relationship over the years for the most part. And you know, it's like, I'm not going to lie to you, but whenever we have to make a change like that, you dread it, or I did, and there was no pushback, and they
Well,
seemed
when
to
you sit
like
down
it.
and you're honest like that, though, it only
Yeah,
takes a reasonable person. I think that's the biggest thing that gets skewed when we have that stereotype that nobody's going to want to go into assisted living. It's like, if you sugarcoat it and try and wrap me in bubble wrap and convince me it's going to be the world's greatest thing, you're full of shit. But if you sit down and you go, look, financially, this is where you're at. This makes
yep.
the most sense. You guys can stay together, and it will make it this much easier on everyone. I know you're a reasonable person. Can you make a reasonable decision? It's like, I really, I would find it hard, even though this particular grandpa can be quite stubborn at times. I would find it hard for him to argue with that when you say, you're still close, we'll
Yeah.
still come see you, and you guys get to stay together. By the way, if you guys make it to 100 years old, this is much more feasible financially than what you're currently doing.
Your mom had just two numbers written on a piece of paper while we were talking to him. She went over and sat by him, and she goes, Dad, this is what you're spending a month. And this is what you will be spending a month. And it was like 60% of what
Yeah.
he was spending. And I'm confident at this place, they're getting better care. We
Well,
actually
that's the
ate,
thing with 24/7 care at home, especially when they're not all agency people. Some of them are just
right,
people you found. If somebody doesn't show up, either you got to get there now or her parents don't have care.
right.
That situation never arises at this facility.
Right. And that never happened because your mom always subbed. So it's a good, it was one of those things. It was tough, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. The food there is really good. We actually ate Easter dinner with them, and they had ham and stuff, and it was and they both seemed to like it. So all is well, and we knew that was the right thing, but after you do it, you just continue to get these reinforcements that yes, indeed, it was the right thing. So
I think it also detaches some of the bickering, right? Like, we all know everybody likes to bicker, but especially old people like to bicker, and about the help. And I think by not being their direct boss, that changes the dynamic to where, like, maybe you bitch a little bit here and there about one of the staff, but like for the most part, you're probably going to be much more likely to get along. Just because when they're in your home and you pay for it, if they don't do exactly what you want to do,
Oh
now
yeah.
you can be an ass. But if you're at a facility and you're paying for this privilege, you still have to follow the rules.
Oh yeah. And like I said, they really seem to like it. It was funny. You know, he's sold on this Sony Bravia TV. He's had that TV, that Sony Bravia that he has is, gosh, it has to be 12 years old. You know the
It's like
changes
one
in.
of the original thin screens, isn't it? Or
Yeah,
thin
and I
backs.
and it was a great TV in its day, but
It's
they
not even a
still,
flat screen though, I don't
dude,
think.
they still make Sony Bravias today. And it was like we had it moved over there and moved, he was bound and determined. I want that in my soundbar. It's like, okay. So we moved it or had it moved over there, hooked it up, couldn't get sound on it. And it had a line in the screen. And he's like, and Jane's saying, well, Dad, the replacement TV is like $1,400. Why don't you just get a new one? And he's like, no, 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 no. Well, we went over there the next night and I got sound going. I at least got sound. But it wasn't going through, it was only going through the sound bar. It wasn't coming through the TV. And, on the way home, I'm talking with your mom and I go, you know what? They're saving so much money each month. Let's just go buy him a TV. And she was like all about it. She's like, we need to. So I looked, I found one. We bought it. We went, picked it up the next day. And we took it there, and I took
Well, there's so
the old one
many.
out and hooked the new one up, and it's fantastic.
Like, don't get me wrong, I have a great big Samsung and I love it because it was ahead in technology for its day. And so it's still a very current television today. But and that's what you're going to get with the big name brands is you might get a little bit of future proofing. But if you go with Element or Westinghouse or Vizio, you're going to get somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 TV for $700 to $1,200. I mean, like, so that's the biggest thing is with technology advancing so far these days, it's cheaper to make TVs the way we used to. And so TVs that are still currently modern are super cheap to make. It's only if you're going up to the new style of micro LED that's going to be anything expensive. And I don't know why he wouldn't just get a new TV. I mean, you probably get one double the size, twice the picture quality for a few $100 cheaper than replacing that one.
He didn't want any bigger. I asked him because I could have bought a bigger one cheaper and a Bravia, a bigger one cheaper. And nope. And I actually, because the screen now doesn't have a border on the edge, it's
Right.
full picture screen, edge to
A
edge.
true flat screen, yeah.
So his old TV, the screen amount measured 40 and a half inches. His new TV measures 41 and a half inches because it's actual corner to corner.
Right.
And here's the coolest thing. He's got voice, activated remote.
Yeah.
We taught him how to use that. All he's got to do is say football and it boom, every football related show that's
That's what
on
I
his
do. I
that's
can't
on
even tell you.
Xfinity, he can watch.
I can't. There's two things on it. So he has Xfinity. So there's two things I have Xfinity that I use for college football season. There's you do the mic button and you talk into it, and I'll say college football, and then it brings up all the stuff. Or the other thing, and you can show him this because it's super easy. Right below the directional pad, there's letters. I think A through D, maybe.
Uh-huh.
The C button will bring up sports, and he can have
Okay.
favorite teams saved, and it will give them the stat line, any star players, the current scoreboard, the current time. He can do it for multiple games. He can leave it up on the side while he's watching a game so that he can see the stats of other games. but he can also go to where they are and click on it, and it will take him to directly to the channel that game's on. Or if it's scheduled for the future, he can click on it and record it. So I mean, it's been that I no joke. I've had Xfinity since I've lived here with Melissa, and I cannot tell you what channel any of the sports are on that I watch because I only do the mic or I press that C button, and that C brings up sports. So for me, I'll have Michigan basketball, Michigan football, the Detroit Lions, and if I'm feeling the Pistons that year, maybe the Pistons or the Wings, but I save them as my favorite teams. And so immediately when I press that C button, it says your teams and it shows me if they're playing and what the score is. And then other than that, you can just page over with the directional arrow and it will go through every sport. So it'll give you even like female college soccer and then NCAA basketball. And it's super easy to go through.
That's cool. And I mean, he's figured out how to use that voice remote. I'm sorry if you're getting background noise. My water softener's recharging.
Yeah, all right.
But anyway, yeah. So we got the new TV and got it hooked up, and everything's good, and we're feeling good about it. And like I said, I can already notice a difference in your mom's, stress level and stuff because she knows they're being taken care of. And it's a fairly new facility, extremely nice. So, and they have good food. So everything's working good. Now, a week from Thursday,
Can you
today,
can you adjust your gain knob just a little bit if you can turn it down? Your sound, I'm not hearing anything in the background, but it sounds like your mic is trying to do noise canceling, and so you're a little bit fuzzy.
is that better?
It's about the same, but it's all right. I
Any
mean, you're
better?
you're understandable.
Is that any better?
That's better. Yes.
Okay, good. Um, at any rate, today's Monday, the 17th. On the 27th is the first round of the NFL draft. And don't want to spend too much time on it because we'll be spending a little bit more on it next week. I don't want to bore anybody, but you know how I get amped up about the draft, and there's already a lot of things that could
Oh
happen. A lot of the
God.
free a lot
People
of
being
what?
shy at taking a QB or hearing the Lions might trade up to 3.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I've
don't
read all kinds of
Oh
stuff.
yeah. And a lot of that is just fodder, but a
For
lot of it
sure.
isn't. A lot of it, I really do believe that the Lions have positioned themselves. So I don't think anybody knows what they're going to do.
Well, and the other thing too, like the more you posture and make the GMs and coaching staff nervous of, let's say, the first 5 picks, the more likely something bizarre will happen and a player that shouldn't be there falls to you.
Right.
And so I
So,
I do think a lot of this is that fodder you're talking about. Like people are just, stirring shit up, trying to get everybody antsy.
and there will be surprises. There always are. There will be surprises. There'll be a player picked higher than you thought, and I mean significantly higher. And then there'll be at least one player taken way lower than you thought. And I'm talking about first round players. But, last year, the Patriots, I want to say they picked in the 20s, and, they took a guard that everybody had ranked as a fifth round prospect. They took him in the first round and he started every game. So there's a lot of things going to happen. We'll get into a little bit more of it. We talked about last week, we talked about one of my buddies that I had, gotten reacquainted with and that I worked with years ago. He worked with me when I was putting up traffic signs. And you brought up the sign slapping story, which we were talking about my buddy Ken Yunkin, and this didn't happen to him. I had several people, like when I needed help, you know, they would a different department might send me a guy, and So they sent me this guy from engineering, and I don't know what he did in engineering. I think he sat around a lot and didn't do much of anything. He seemed like he thought he was above work, and don't get me wrong, it's not like you're driving railroad spikes 8 hours a day, but it's work. I mean, it's physical work. And I was doing all that part. I always, swung the sledgehammer and did all that. But this guy was so annoying to have his help. And I mean, he was very quiet. It wasn't that he was rude or hard to get along with. He just didn't want to do anything. It's like you'd see a sign that had been damaged, somebody had run over it. You pull up, I'd pull the truck up to it and get in the position that we have to pull the bent post out of the ground and drive the new post in and all that stuff. And I'd have to tell him to get out of the truck. I mean, he'd just sit there. And I only had him I might have had him for a couple of weeks one year. And I mean, I'd had it with this guy. And I remember where it happened, and it was a place out in northern Jackson County. And there was one of those big, like double arrows that you see at the end of the road that in Michigan, they're black on yellow. And it's got arrows going in both directions. It's like when you come to the end of the road and there's generally a stop sign there. This was just like a directional arrow to tell you, again, that's the end of the road. You got to go one way or the other. And they're like 24 inches high by 48 inches long. They're putting the ground on two posts. The signs are made out of aluminum, and there's spring tension in that aluminum. Well, in this case, and I've been with this guy for a couple weeks, and I'm tired of telling him to get out of the truck because he didn't want to do anything. I pull up to this sign that somebody had just run over. I mean, both posts were bent. The sign was laying down. One post was lower than the other one. So that's under tension. And I had this hammer that had a wedge sharpened on the end of it. And it was like a 4-pound hammer. And so you would always do something to the bolts that you put on the sign so people couldn't steal them. So they couldn't take them off with a wrench.
Yeah.
And so you do something like pound them over with a hammer or what. So to take them off, I'd get on the back side of the post and I'd take that hammer with that wedge on it and hit that bolt and break it off. Well, this guy who's, doesn't know how to do anything. Do you remember the guy who worked with us when we worked at the same place named Alex?
Yes, I was thinking of stories about him. Yes.
He's that kind of a guy. He doesn't know how to do anything. He's above it. He doesn't want to do anything.
But it's not just that. I struggle to call anyone useless, but I will say this. It is a struggle to find their use.
That's fair. And I don't know about this guy that I'm talking of, 50 years ago. Yeah, 45 years ago. Maybe he went on to be a raging success. I would be shocked if he did, because he just didn't seem to have a lot of ambition. And being assigned to do any kind of physical labor was way beneath him. And you could just tell it. So anyway, this sign's all bent and it's under tension. I knock one of the bolts off on one side, and the guy, again, I didn't say get out of the way because I didn't think I had to. I didn't do this on purpose, but I knocked the other bolt off of that one side of the sign, and that aluminum was under tension. And I mean, that thing jumped up, hit him, the edge of that sign hit him right in the head, and it bounced back and forth and hit him in the head like 4 times.
Yeah. Whap, 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 whap.
And left, like, it didn't draw blood, but it made like blood under the skin,
For
like
sure, like
in
a
4 different
strawberry.
places on his
Yeah.
forehead. So I just thought, and and Youngkin wasn't. This wasn't Youngkin, and Youngkin Ken wasn't anything like that. Ken was a very willing worker, but I just thought, you know what, you kind of earned that, with
Oh,
this guy. It's like, dude, what am I supposed to say? Back up? I mean, I I
some
honestly
people, man.
I didn't look. I didn't think I had to look. But man, he got whacked pretty good in the head. And I think the first time I told you that story, you said karma's a bitch.
Yeah,
And
it is.
well, that's why I
But I
say,
mean, there's people like you're talking about Alex. I mean, there's a few stories there. I took him to one of the sites, and there's a cookie cutter like stripping project. So it's a perfect rectangle cut out of the earth that's, I don't know, 70 yards long by 100 yards wide. And all you have to do to survey this is walk the edge of it and take points from the high ground, and
right.
then walk the edge of it again and take points from the low ground. And everything else in between, because it was at grade, is going to be flat. So you don't even need to survey. You can just have the data interpolate between it.
Yep.
And so, or you can take one shot, like one spot shot in the middle, and have all the points tie together for AutoCAD building a surface. It's very basic. I mean, walk a rectangle twice. And I explain this to him. I show him this. I go, you're facing north. This is the way the controller works. And our boss calls, and I'm on the phone with our boss, and he starts surveying. And I turn around not 3 minutes later, and I go, oh shit, I gotta go. And I hung up on my boss because he walked out of the cookie cutter, had gone like another 50 yards, and was walking through the woods on the neighbor's property where you
Oh
can't even get
boy.
signal to survey.
Oh boy.
So then we can't do that. So my old boss has me take him onto another project to do grade staking. That's a pain in the ass on its own. Doing it with
Right.
someone who's going to make it harder, not ideal.
Sure.
So
It
just
gets on
because you
your
got to be
nerves.
very accurate. Like if you're wrong, you screw up the whole project. So I take him out there, and it's like I can't have him measure it. I can't have him marking it up. He's
Nothing.
if I give him the bundle of stakes, they're bigger than he is. So I give him the hammer, and I'm like, all you got to do is grab the stake and tap this into the ground. Once it's in the ground, give it one or two good hits. You'll hit it down a couple inches. That way it won't tip over while the earth movers are moving. I've got everything else. So I'm carrying the stakes for him, carrying the ribbon, carrying the marker. I've got the survey gear. And I can't even think of why he faced this way. But while I was getting the marker out to mark the stick, he decided to, instead of be facing towards me and hammer into the ground the stake, he decided to face his ass towards me. And instead of tapping the stake into the ground and then hitting it a couple times, he just wanted to one hit it into the ground. And he missed and hit me square in the shin with a 4-pound maul. And I thought I was going to murder this kid. I mean, that shit, for anyone who hasn't been hit with that, double the pain of running into a trailer hitch with your shin.
Yeah.
It was brutal. And so then when I tell my boss this, because we got put in an awkward spot. This person was a
He
family
had an
friend.
inside track.
Exactly. And so he was making more money than me. All this crazy stuff. And it put my boss in a bad spot where we didn't know what to do. So we bring him into a meeting with us. And I think you were there. Because we brought him into a meeting because we couldn't have him out in the field. And while we're explaining what's going to happen during mining planning, or the big meeting of the year, you look over, and I believe it was you, and you point at him, and my boss and I look at, and he's sleeping.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
He's probably going to
maybe
be the
not
next Attorney
useless,
General
but
of the state of Michigan or something.
he went. I think he ended up going to Purdue for engineering, but I heard he had some big hotshot job. I don't remember what it was, but you know, I say this all the time. It baffles me the success people have, and good for them, honestly. But even my wife, if it comes to research or anything, just using Google in a basic manner, I swear it seems like a struggle. But it's like she's a college graduated nurse. I mean, she's got a degree. She's very good at her job. I sit there and I go, how the hell did you pass any classes if you struggle this bad online? But it's just I don't know. They got something I don't, I guess.
Well, a degree for one, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's about it.
I don't know. I was so frustrated with that kid because Matt gave it to me one day, and I took it. I can't remember if you were there or not, but Salam and I were. Salam went with me, and Salam was just there because he brought Alex, and we were sitting offset stakes because we were going to pave a driveway, and it was simple math. And I mean, it's dividing 18 by 2 in your head.
Was this at Ray Road?
Yes.
I
Were
took
you
him there. I don't think Salam went. I took him there to stake with you.
Oh, Salam showed up. I remember Salam.
He was probably
there.
doing something with the drone there, but I do remember doing this project with you.
Salam showed up, and whatever Alex was doing, because he was so awful at it, I asked Salam to do it. And so Alex just did nothing. He walked with us.
Yeah.
And
I
was just beside myself.
If I remember correctly, I'm not sure why Salam was there, but I think I brought Alex there and I think I had to leave him with you because I was doing blow counts with Zanati, I believe, for the M24 quarter. But I do remember that. I remember your frustration, and I know we had an exchange at some point, like within the next week or so, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I wish I could, but it's like, it was something along the lines where I walked up to you and I'm like, do you see how baffling it is? Like you're
God.
actually at a loss on what is safe to do. I mean, I've only had one person that was worse than that I've had to work with. And again, same company, same type of scenario. And they had him counting Absopure water bottles in one of our storage shed. And when he got done, they asked him for the inventory. He literally counted all the bottles. He didn't separate the ones that were full and the ones that were empty.
Oh my goodness.
I've got one more story that might trump that. And this was, I mean, one of my favorite things that happened while I worked for that company. There was well, I don't want to say his full name, but I guess I'll say his last name because I don't know if you know if I just said his first name, but Weaver.
Yeah.
When he left, and he was good help, but he didn't understand things and think them through all the time. So you had to make sure you explained it perfectly. But if you explained it perfectly, it would get done.
And he wasn't afraid of physical work.
Not at all.
Right.
And I think he was pretty good natured. Like, I don't think he was a bad dude by any means, but he used to just do things bizarre where you wonder if the light's just not on. Like,
Right.
Are we on autopilot here? What happened? After he ended up quitting, it was a weird scenario, but he ended up quitting, and after he left, I used to discover all of these things that he had done in the most bizarre way. That you're like, what happened here? And I used to call them little gems that he left us. So every time when I'd come into the office, I'd go, I found another little gem. And everybody would want to know what it was. And my favorite one, it was the last week that he had worked there. He was responsible for cleaning up our ATV and pulling it up into the trailer. And then he ended up not working, and I can't remember if winter came or whatever, but we had not used the ATV for months at this point. We come back, he again is the last person to have touched it, and like you do with anything in a trailer, you got to use tie downs and strap it down, right? I mean, you got to
Yeah.
make sure it's secure in the trailer for hauling.
Right.
So I go in there to check and make sure that this thing is secure before I hook up to the truck. And when I open those doors, he took tie downs and literally tied it down. He didn't use a single ratchet or the hooks.
Like used them like ropes and tied them in knots.
Yes, he literally tied the ATV to the floor hook with ratchet straps.
That's funny.
I don't. It's and here's the worst part. He tied it in so many knots, we had to cut them off.
Well,
So we lost our ratchet straps. But it's like, who does? I mean, come on. Like, I know they can get stuck, but a ratchet strap's one of the most simple machines you'll use.
especially on tie downs, man, they're not very complicated.
Well,
at
and
all.
on an ATV too, you've got holes in the frame.
Yeah.
So the hooks fit right in. It's not even like, where do I put this? You put one hook in the frame of the dump bed. You put one hook around the front brush guard, and then the other hooks go on the floor, and you just ratchet it, and it tightens down. And instead of using 3 to tie this down, he used 8, I believe, and they were actually so like when I say fully tied down, I'm saying he took the hook and the ratchet and slid it through the D ring on the floor and then tied it into a knot. And then tied that to another ratchet strap. And then tied that to the ATV.
Well, everybody knows. Everybody's used the measuring tape, the retractable measuring tapes,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody knows. Like you can pull the tape out, lock it with a button so it holds stiff, and or if you're measuring something a short distance by yourself, you can use it that way to hook onto something and be
Right.
able to read it. I remember Alex didn't know how to release. He said the tape stuck. He didn't know how to release the
Well, wasn't
button.
it? Well, we had two. I thought we did something else with them, maybe out at Freedom. I can't remember, but you had the measuring tool that's on a wheel that you roll it to measure feet.
Right.
And he couldn't figure that out. And then I thought we got you see them in track if anyone's ever run track before, but they're obviously used a lot in construction. But they're the tape measures that are on a reel and they pull out. You know what I'm talking about? I
Yeah.
mean, they're like 100 feet long.
Yeah.
They're not like your
Yeah.
12-foot
I have.
tape
Yep.
measure.
I have one.
There
Yeah.
was a time where you had me do something for you, and Alex was with me, so he had that tape measure, and we used it, and then I gave it back, or I gave it to him, and I'm like, all right, just put this away, and I think he put it like either like in your trunk or something because it was yours, and when you got there, it was completely unraveled. Like I gave him the tape measure when we were done. Because I didn't even give him that. I was holding the end to measure. He was holding the actual device. So I just let go and I said, all right, put it away. But he didn't wrap it up. He just left it loose and threw it in your trunk. Like, good luck, man. And where's the thought?
Like you
What are you
said,
doing?
you just wonder about people. Now we've got our first golf scramble, and are you going to get out and play before the first week in June? I think that scramble's June 3rd.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. I mean, we were gonna play this past week, but a couple things came up and we couldn't. So I
Well, I'm going to
probably will get
definitely get
out.
out once or twice. I want to just loosen up, but
Well, maybe we'll stop by and have mom watch the kids and Melissa and I'll play with you one of these times beforehand.
that'd work. The above or below 50 for this week. Okay, for those that don't know, a scramble, you use the best ball. It's like 4 of you hit tee shots. You go to the best tee shot. Everybody hits from there. And that's how you score. So in a scramble, you should be able to score pretty good. We never score great, but you should be able to score pretty well, because you're taking the best shot of 4 every time. And there are guys there who play in that tournament who say they finished 20 under par. I don't know that they do, but the same team.
Not a chance. Not with as hammered as everyone gets.
But okay, so here's the above or below 50 for this week in our June 3rd scramble. And your brother has a wedding, your brother Jacob, so he can't play, but I think Big Mike's going to play.
Right.
Joe's friend Mike. The above or below 50 for the scramble, are we going to score even par or below, above or below 50? What's your thoughts?
I'm going to give us a 70, a 75. So I'm going above that we break even or go below. So go negative, I guess. Yes. And the only reason, or I guess the reasons, I mean, I'm pretty sure Mike's a decent golfer.
Yeah, Mike's okay.
I know that you're a decent golfer. Joe will hit his good shots here and there. And I have played more golf in the last 2 or 3 years than I've played in the rest of my life. And so, although I'm not consistent, when I hit a really good shot, it's not 10 feet from the hole, it's 6 inches from the hole. And so, again,
so you're saying 70 or 75%
chance that we do it, that we break even or go lower, because I think this year, because we can get there, so that's the two parts. It seems like our mid-range has always been good, but it seems like we either short deck it on a putt and botch that, or when we tee off, nobody hits a good drive, and we've got a long way to go from our second hit. With you being there and Mike being there, which my guess is Mike is probably more consistent than Jacob, at least from what I've heard. If we're out in the fairway, it's like, I mean, I know Joe can hit out of the fairway. I've been hitting a lot better out of the fairway. Obviously, you can hit out of the fairway. Just on a better consistency basis, I think we will have many more birdies. And so I think we'll be closer to breaking even or being under, just because even though we're going to botch some putts, I think we'll have more birdies, as to where go a few years back, and if we got there at par, everybody's smiling.
I'm not. I don't have the confidence level of you, and I don't think we'll finish way over par. But I'd say we have a 10% chance to break even or go under.
To break even in a scramble.
Yes, because
really,
we always flirt with it, but many times we're 1 or 2 over. Many times. But again, and I mean, I think Mike's like the rest of us. I mean, I don't necessarily think Mike's better than Jacob, but Mike can hit some really good shots. But he can, he's inconsistent, like we all are,
Right.
But I don't think we have a great chance, just because, we have had this happen, and you've been there, where we got a 12-foot putt, an 8-foot putt for a birdie. Nobody makes it.
We 3-putt it.
We got a 6-foot putt for a birdie. Nobody makes it. We got a 4-foot putt for a par. Nobody makes it. It's like those kind of things kill you. And as much fun as it is, and it is, and Mike's a great sub. He fits right in, and he plays along like everybody else. Mike's a great guy to sub. He's really good natured, and he can hit some shots. But I just don't think we never put it together. And even if we do, somebody's going to claim to shoot 20 under or something. So
yeah, I don't think there's any chance we come close to winning. I just like in my own play, I was happy, in 2018, 2019 to get bogey that was like really good for me. And over the past couple years playing with Melissa, I've gotten a few birdies on my own, obviously, but we've been playing on really hard courses, but I've got a
Right.
few on my own, and even just by myself, my score has gone from like plus astronomical to single digits.
Well,
I mean, I'm over par, but that's by like I'm not gonna change this scramble by myself by any means. I'm certainly a handicap player, but I'm substantially better than I had been in the past. And I don't know. If
I hope you're right, dude. I
if
hope you're right. It'd be fun
the
anyway.
windows just got to line up, right? So
Yeah.
when you're inconsistent, one of us has to hit a good drive. When all of us are inconsistent, Mike's got to hit a good shot. And I just it seems like it'd be pretty hard for it not to align for that to happen. And I know we haven't done it in the past, but I think some of that was just one, sucking at golf, two, being a little willy nilly. But if we're actually putting effort into it, I think we can go even with par. I mean, I'll know more once Melissa and I play how bad, because you're shaking the rust off after
Oh,
the
sure.
winter.
That's why
So
it's important to get out a couple of times, and it'd be nice to get out, like I said, a couple of times in at least, inside of a week or a week before that outing,
and
aside
I've
from loosening up and taking practice swings, but actually play around.
another big thing I've done. Like if Melissa can't hit a straight drive, which most of the time she's killing it, but if we're gonna have to kind of play scramble for a hole or whatever, I've been able to chop my drive down. So instead of just winding up and going crazy, and hopefully it goes straight and I don't slice it into oblivion, that I take like a very rigid pendulum swing. So it's I don't even really bring the club up to my shoulders. Like I don't take it that high in my backswing, but I can even that. I usually drive straight when I'm doing that on a narrow course, and I'm hitting about 230 with it. It's nothing spectacular, but
Oh, dude, I'd take that
hitting it
every time.
straight is
If you can hit
yeah.
it
I mean
straight,
that's the problem,
I'd take
right?
230 every time if you can get it
Well,
straight.
I started getting better at driving, and I'm not good by any means. Don't let me you know confuse anybody out there. I am not good by any means, but I started driving better because when Melissa and I started playing some of these courses that are harder, we'd get up to our tee box and then I go, "Hold on, where's yours?" And I couldn't even see it, and so we'd drive up to see where hers was and then drive back to mine. And you get on a regular course, sometimes they're 40 yards ahead, 90 yards ahead, 110 yards ahead maybe, and that's like a far one. And there's some of these where it's a par five and she's like 187 in front of me, and other ones where it's a par four and she's 145, 165. And so it's like, I got 165 yards till I get to your tee box, man. Like I
They
gotta hit
have
this well over 200, or else you're gonna be a mile in front of me.
I didn't play them last year, but they have senior tees, which are very close to the women's tees. And
Yeah,
I'm a senior, so I could play from the senior tees.
do it.
Well, that's what Jacob was saying last year, and I didn't do it, but I may do that this year. If I did that, then we might have a chance of getting under par. Because
Yeah,
that's a huge advantage. That's a huge advantage. But we've got that coming up. I'm sure we're going to have at least one more. I want to play a little more golf this year, but we're going to talk about this more as we lead up to it. But in August, we mentioned, I think on the last podcast, we've got a family motorcycle trip coming up, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm really looking forward to the fact that all you guys are going.
yeah. I mean,
And
did you say the destination or the plan for when we're down there last time we
I
talked
I
about it?
don't remember, but it's we're going. We've rented a vacation rental house very close to Maryville, Tennessee. It's like 4 miles, which is very close to the Smoky Mountains, Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And we've rented all of us rented Harleys out of there, out of the same dealership in Maryville, and we're going to ride for 3 days in the Smokies. And then Alan is flying up to Dallas earlier that week. He's renting a bike in Dallas. He's rented a big Yamaha. I saw it. I think it's a 1800 Yamaha. It's all decked out. It's got hard bags on it and stuff. And he's riding up from Dallas, and he's going to meet us in Maryville and ride with us. And, we're going to ride the tail of the dragon and all
That's going to be fun.
322 curves and 11 miles. I mean, I see
I'm
all
excited.
these different stats.
Yeah, so apparently it's apparently that 322 or 327, I can't remember what it is, but that is every time the road has more than like a 10-degree change. So the real curves, I've heard it's even in the 200s, but again, over 11 miles, that's insane.
And it's beautiful country. Now, I've been told on the Tail of the Dragon, other than a few pull-off areas like outlooks, actually, you don't see a lot because there's so much woods. And it's so curvy, you're not seeing a lot. But obviously in the Smoky Mountains, I mean, we'll be driving through tunnels and it's beautiful country.
I've seen footage of the Tail of the Dragon, and it does seem very much like that. It almost reminds me a little bit of like when you get out in the country in Jackson, and you got those rolling hills. When some people have their house is right next to the road, and then the hills right behind their house, and the trees are all there, and it's a giant woodlot. And on the other side, you almost have a high wall edge from a rolling hill where the road was cut through.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of footage where it's like that. So you're just kind of going down a windy road, and it doesn't seem like it's much of an experience visually. I think it's more for the rider's enjoyment of that many turns. I mean,
we'll have 3
just
days.
Looking at footage of people going through that versus footage that I've seen, plus also riding through the Tunnel of Trees. I think the Tunnel of Trees is a much better view. But the actual road is yes, much better for the Tail of the Dragon.
And we're going to be, that'll be 1 day's adventure, is riding the Tail of the Dragon. We'll have 2 other days to ride. So we're going to hit we're going to go through part of the Shenandoah Valley. We'll be able to ride on the Blue Ridge Parkway. I mean, and those are scenic.
You guys are going to get Joe to shit his pants.
And we're going to get some elevation too. And Joe will shit his pants. But you and Melissa took your oldest boy, JJ, to the movies today. What'd you see?
Yes. We saw the new Mario movie.
Okay.
So Chris Pratt plays Mario, and I think it's Jack Black plays Bowser. But essentially, if you're a fan of the video games or even the like live action movie that happened in the 90s, all of that's included. You get to see a lot of the different characters. I know one of the characters I didn't see in the movie was Yoshi, but other than that, they seem to do a very good job of bringing in the elements. Like Donkey Kong's going to be in there, Toad's going to be in there for anyone who knows the franchise. So you have a lot of the main characters from the video games, plus the abilities, the different suits and stuff they wear that give them different powers when you play Mario. All of those were included. It was a very family-friendly movie. I thought it was incredibly well done. They bring up everything. So if you grew up in that area playing those video games, it's very nostalgic because you see all that stuff. And they did a good job with references as well. One of the things I noticed is this movie leads into how Mario gets into the world of Mario, which is that mushroom land, because he's actually from Brooklyn. And so it shows how he gets caught up in this alternate reality. And once he gets there, one of the main characters, Toad, is showing him like around the village, trying to lead him to the princess. And as they pass a kiosk, there are other animated characters, and one of them selling goods and the other one's purchasing goods. And the one purchasing goes, does this work? And the seller goes, yeah. And he goes, sometimes you just got to blow on it. And it's just little things like that, because I'm sure you remember all the old
Oh,
video game cartridges. You had to blow on them to get them to
yes,
work. And
yes.
Mario was like the king of that. And so they just
Wasn't
have a
that the
ton of,
Nintendo thing that you had to blow on
yes.
them all the time? Yeah.
Nintendo and Sega, but Nintendo's more notoriously known. And that's where Super Mario is Nintendo.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
um, but they did a really good job having little tie-ins like that. The other thing is the soundtrack is killer. I mean, it's just awesome. They have classic songs in there. You
Uh-huh.
would love it. I mean, just they've got AC/DC in there. Um, is it Electric Light Orchestra or
Yeah. ELO.
yes,
Yeah.
they have them in there. There's a whole bunch. If I tried to remember them all, I'm sure I'd just keep stumbling and stammering. But the soundtrack is just phenomenal. Chris Pratt does a much better job at Mario than I think anyone was ready to give him credit for, because I know that was a concern. And staying true to the franchise and what it is, I thought they did very, very well. And it's entertaining for an adult. Like, I would recommend that you see it.
Cool. This sounds cool.
So, yeah, that was the movie. The other part was this was JJ's first movie. So, um, the exciting part about that, obviously, it's his first movie. It's his first big boy movie. So we're in a theater, and he's got to behave and all of that, and he did very well. But we also we don't have any just kind of like plain Jane theaters around us. It's all Imagine theaters. So he got to be very spoiled, because we go into this Imagine theater and you've got the extra leg room. You're sitting in a recliner. So he's got his legs up, back tilted, and he's got climate control. So he's got air conditioning in his seat. And we get pretzel bites, pizza, and candy delivered to us during the movie. So
Gotta
he
like
was
that.
living life.
That and we talked about the Imagine theaters. The chairs are comfy, the food's good. You get stuff delivered during the movie. That's fantastic.
Well, they just make it worth the price. That's my like. I remember growing up, we always went to Quality 16. I think it was on Jackson Road, but we always went to Quality 16, and you get like a snack or whatever, and the snack plus the movie tickets, you were spending an astronomical amount of money, and not only are the tickets cheaper now, but you're getting that seat and you're getting the food for relatively the same price, if not cheaper. And it's delivered to you, and it's super high quality. I mean, the pizzas at Imagine, they're all made in brick ovens. So they're phenomenal. And it's just, you're actually getting the bang for your buck. It's more worthwhile to go see a movie and get that stuff than it is to go out to a dinner,
Yeah,
just because you get the whole thing.
there's an Imagine that's fairly close to where your mom and I live, and we've been there, and it is nice. That I always said, and I said this for years, like the drive-in theaters used to be popular, right?
Yeah, I wish
And
they still were.
and the food was notoriously bad and notoriously expensive, but it was bad. Like, Alan and I would go to the drive-in all the time because they'd have like a triple feature of horror movies, you know, and you're there in the car and you got the stupid speaker that's boom, 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 you can barely understand it. But the food was so bad, we got to a point, and this is during our high school days, we would, smuggle in KFC or, bring it in the trunk.
Right.
And
I never understood why they
a
didn't
six
joint
pack of
venture.
Pepsi. Why they
Like,
what?
why they wouldn't do like a joint venture. It would make so much sense to me to put an A&W out there so you can have a frozen mug during your movie,
Dude, I
or put
have
a Totoroff's or a Coney Island. Like, you know what
I
I
have
mean, though?
I've pondered that question for years. I used to tell Alan, Coney Island. It's like
Yeah.
Put Coney Island, put a Pizza Hut in there or something. You could
Or a
charge
little
whatever you
hot and ready
wanted.
trailer that they used to do, like
Yeah,
Little
you
Caesars
could
used to do.
yeah, you could charge what you wanted because people are paying it for bad food
Right.
and they'll pay more for good food. But yeah, that I love the Imagine experience. Now, we talked a little bit about golf outing coming up. One of these times we're going to have to do this. Now, Alan and I have done these trips. We called them golf suicide. Now, one year we had golf suicide weekend. It started at a golf course up by Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it started on Friday evening. So you basically paid one fee and you have a golf cart and all the golf you can play until like Sunday afternoon at 2.
And it
And
starts on Friday night at twilight?
yes,
Oh
and
my
he
god.
had like a camper, travel trailer, a small one, and they had a campground there at the golf course. So I mean, he pulls his travel trailer, parks it, and we played golf. I think we got in 18 holes Friday night. Saturday, I want to say we played. I mean, we were both dragging because we're drinking and stuff Friday night too. And Saturday, I want to say we played 81 holes, and
Oh
then
my
and
god.
Sunday we played like 36.
I'll never do that.
Well, I was younger then, and
Yeah, I mean, we might
I
be able
wouldn't
to
do
play
that.
81 holes if one of us putt, the other one hit mid, and the other one was hitting driver.
But and I wouldn't suggest that. But what I would suggest is in around Jackson County, there used to be 22 public golf courses. There's not that many anymore. The economy has killed a few over the years. But I bet there's still 15 or 16. And many of those have an all day pass. Like where, and I'm not going to know the numbers, but as an example, if you paid $40 for 18 holes in a cart, 18 holes in your share of a cart, if you paid $55, you play all day. They still have those at some nice courses in Jackson. And like one of those courses I'm thinking of, they have, I believe, 54 holes,
I was gonna say, like, if you got to a course, like, there's one that we play at, I think it's Bellow Woods, but it's got 3 different 9-hole courses. It's like, okay, now playing 27 holes isn't gonna be that bad because you're not replaying it. So I could see playing like 9 on a Friday night, either 18 or 27 on Saturday, and then another 9 maybe on Sunday. But playing 81 holes in a day, my god.
I don't even want to, we don't even need to do it for a weekend. But if we could arrange to do that at one of those courses in Jackson where we play all day and we're not, I wouldn't expect to, I don't think my body would hold up to play even 54 holes anymore.
Well,
But
that's
if
why I
we,
feel like it'd be better to do 18, but just 2 days in a row.
well, what Alan and I would do, and we did this many times, and again, there were more courses then, pricing was more competitive. And I mean, some of these are nice tracks. I mean, they're nice public courses. And what we would do is that we would play 18, go in, have lunch, have a couple drinks, maybe get a drink to go out and play another 18 with one club and a putter, and compare your score with one club and a putter.
You're teeing off with that one club too?
Yeah. Yeah. You hit every
So you
shot with
got to
one
take a
club.
7 iron then, right?
That's what I took.
I'm
That's what
gonna,
I'd always
yeah,
take.
like I don't know what else you're gonna have in your bag that's as well rounded.
It was surprising, Jared, many, many times. And we did that a lot. And many times our scores would be like 2 shots different using one club for even on every
Yeah,
shot,
I
like
gotta
on a par
imagine the
five.
only thing that would like fuck you is a par 5.
But again, if you're in the fairway, you can still get there in
You
3
get
most of
par,
the time.
yeah.
Yeah. And in lots, many times we would, our scores would be, within 2 strokes of what we played with a full bag of clubs.
What is that? Tin Cup? Is that the movie with the 7 Kevin
I think
Costner?
so. Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
he like bets a guy that he can beat him with one club? I'm pretty sure that's Tin Cup, but I can't
But
remember.
it's like we should do that. And again, I'm not even saying we don't even have to play all day, but we should play more often, the
Well,
4
what
of
I
us,
think would be
'cause I enjoy it.
fun is like how we're doing the bike trip this year, right? If for some reason we can't do a bike trip or not everyone's available for it, I think it'd be really fun for us guys to go up for a 3 or 4 day weekend and stay like in Petoskey and play the courses in Petoskey. But we can spread it out. So it's like if we get up there early Friday and want to play, we play Friday, but maybe everybody's sore Saturday, so we don't play till Sunday. But just up somewhere nice in northern Michigan, good weather, good food, and obviously they have some fantastic courses up there.
Oh,
I
big
think a
time.
trip like that would be a lot of fun.
And I wouldn't object to taking the families because we could still
No,
play golf
yeah,
and take everybody, and there's something
but
for
we are gonna
everybody to
have to
do.
have someone watch my kids because Melissa's gonna want to golf.
Well, that's okay. I'll take my turn. I'll take my turn.
Well, I mean, we'll
But
have Mom, Jen, Kelly, whoever. So I'm
yeah,
sure they can
I'll,
handle 2 extra kids.
but let's think about a movie for next week that we want to review, and that's kind of where I am. I'm done.
Sounds good. I'm ready to wrap it up as well.
All right, buddy.
To all of our listeners out there, we appreciate you guys sticking by us and staying tuned. Every like, subscription, share, those things always help. So we encourage you to do that. If you have any comments, questions, or anything along those lines that you just want to share with us, things we can do better, please let us know. We'd love to hear some feedback. But on that note, be safe, be smart, make good choices, and peace out. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, buddy.
Bye bye.
Bye.